There's just 1 minute to showtime.
The engines are on.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
When they wrote up the systems and the rule set that we use, did working people get to write a line? What class of men on pen and paper jotted down their clues? With capital the heart of their design. When 90 million want a thing, but some shareholders say no. Which class of people get to have their way? The people read the fine print and say that this thing has got to go. And we'll start writing a new contract here today. Don't you know that hundreds will work and one man keeps the money? They don't think they gotta tell us why. When they say the new social contract, all the bosses will be gobsmacked and everyone will want a sign. Oh, yeah, everyone will want a sign.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for an all-new episode of Social Contract. I'm Nicolette, and I'm here with my illustrious co-host for the first time in several weeks. We have made our schedules align, the stars have aligned, and we are here together at the same time. Mr. Mayor Jared.
Hello. What's going on, everybody? I am happy to be back after a brief respite, and then we're gonna see if that. I think it's lined up that I shouldn't be missing all of my Tuesdays in October. I'm definitely missing like one of them. We'll see. I become much more free in November. I didn't know that October and end of September was going to get this busy, but it did.
Yeah, well, it happens. You're a busy rock star man, so you have a lot going on in your life. So we understand here. And hey, it's
So
our show. You
much.
could be here if you want to be here. So we appreciate getting to have you. Hello to the chat, All Your Time Traveler 2, saying hello to us. So hello to you. Yes, so this is the first time after some internet issues on my part and then a break and then Jared's travels that we've been able to get back together for several weeks. So we're glad to be working it out and getting back into the zone. And you always just hope that, like, well, I guess if the news was better, we wouldn't be here. But we hope that we get to talk about.
Oh, I would. I'd be doing my celebratory victory laps because if things are getting better, that means some large structural changes are taking place in the government.
Good point. Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. If it would be better if we had better things to say, because then that means that we were getting what we wanted.
We only have the sad "I told you so's." We don't yet get the happy "I told you so's."
Exactly.
But they're coming, everybody. It's probably closer than you think.
Well, I hope so. I like the optimism. I've kind of at this point had the optimism just like beaten out of me. So I don't know.
So much optimism in me.
I think that, well, you would know better than I because you have got a bigger worldview on things, and that's going to be part of what we'll be discussing here shortly. Jared's been on the road and internationally, so he's going to share some interesting photos with us, some stories about how things are going outside of the country, which will be nice to hear for once, because when we get to what's going on in the country, this is basically the level of total failure by the United States government. It really doesn't get more of a failure state than where we are right now. And
when it comes to failure, we are number one.
We are number one in failure, and that's what it is. And people are, I've seen a lot online. People are invoking Hurricane Katrina, which happened in 2005. And at the time, it's not like it was like the only hurricane that ever happened, but it was just a catastrophic failure of leadership and of the whole George Bush hates black people thing, and
people don't even talk about Sandy anymore. Hurricane Sandy hit Connecticut.
That kind of gets mowed right over. People tend to forget.
People are still living in tents and trailers because they're promised that you're gonna get your house like any year now. And that was like 08, 14,
Yeah, and
12.
remember the FEMA trailers that were full of like formaldehyde and poison that they gave them. Like, here you go. Like, so I'm real tired of the boast of America number one. America number one in nothing. America number one in war. That's what America is. We have descended into this place of absolute failure, and it is to some degree by design. You would say most degree by design, but the point I invoke Katrina because it seemed like a one-off situation, like, oh, we'll never do that again, because it was kind of contained to the mostly, southern coastal, primarily New Orleans, Mississippi, a little bit Texas type. So it didn't seem as like, like, oh, okay, we've learned that things are different now, climate change, this and that. And no, it's just been a stair step into making things worse and worse and worse, and having worse leadership and more money mongering, as that goes, and the just this very small percentage of people really enriching themselves off of war, to the point that there is nothing else going on in anyone else's minds within leadership. So this is a catastrophic failure again of our leadership, and with just a few weeks until a major presidential election, this should be being looked at by everyone on all sides of the political spectrum as unacceptable. So that's where I will save that conversation for a little bit later in the show. And I'm going to turn things over to Jared, who's going to tell us from the outside looking in
Well,
what his experience has been.
I want to do a bit of like a news sandwich where I am going to Shanghai some of my vacation photos into this thing. But
Oh, wow, yeah.
before I even do that, this is a quick one because so we talked the other day about Project 2025. Will my screen set be correct? Nope. Oh baby. will
It's
this
working. Everything's working like it should.
will this screen set be correct? Okay, what's that? Oh, come on there it is. Boom. Ah, okay. So we saw this. I saw this headline just like earlier today. I guess it was like September 30th. So this was written yesterday. And the only reason I bring this up is to illustrate how, like, you hear terms like fake news, misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theory. Like these things are thrown around like just as quick buzzwords to get you to be. I'm enjoying this phrase direction brained, where people or before you can actually engage with a thing, you have to first be told, well, is this left wing or right wing? Is this Pokemon blue or Pokemon red? And you use like signal terms to try and just kind of like turn your brain off, stop thinking about anything. Like Project 2025 has kind of become one of those. Like you can just yell Project 2025 and then like a magic spell, anyone who thinks of themselves as on the left just immediately goes, it's bad. Got it. Here we go. I see this Huffington Post article that says, no, a former Republican congressman now backing Harris did not author Project 2025. There has been a wave of neocon endorsements of the Harris campaign. Our larger point, or at least my larger point, is that we have one party, and we have had one party with two different aesthetics for a long, long time. Because when you look at this thing through a class lens, they serve the exact same interest. There seems to be disagreement amongst our owners as to whether we should be heavier into tech or heavier into industry. But don't mistake that as class politics. Like Trump people, I'm sorry, he doesn't actually care about you. Like, and I don't say that as a like, and that means go vote for Harris. I'd say the exact same thing. Harris, she does not care about you, which does not mean, hey, go vote for the other guy who doesn't care about you.
And
I think
both
electoralism is
have had
a farce.
to demonstrate that. Trump has had
Yes.
his chance to demonstrate that, and Harris in the Biden administration has had her chance to demonstrate that.
So when you see things where it's like, man, this is all one big club, they're all friends with each other behind the scenes, and the actual rulers who are above the politicians that we get to like talk about, like the politicians, they're kind of competing like in an American Idol style for who will best serve the actual rulers, the owning class, banker, gangster, freaking ghouls, who will serve them the best. They get to be president. Well, look, they're all in the same club. They're all like this. They're all friends with each other, and here is an illustration of that. This Huffington Post thing says no. A former Republican congressman now backing Harris did not author Project 2025, and then you like read it for 5 seconds. right-wing the Heritage Foundation of it's another like, oh, ooga booga, is that left or right? That will make my entire opinion known to me if you just tell me which direction it is. And former Oklahoma Congressman Mickey Edwards agree on one thing: Edwards had nothing to do with Project 2025, Heritage's transition plan for Donald Trump's win in November that Democrats have turned into a political milestone. He says, I have no relationship whatsoever with the Heritage Foundation and have not had for a very long time. Well, we're already parsing our language here, aren't we? Haven't for a long time. All I know about Project 2025 is what I read in the newspapers. In response to a HuffPost inquiry, a Heritage Foundation spokesperson also dismissed Edwards having any connection to the think tank, saying former Congressman Edwards is not affiliated with the Heritage Foundation, no involvement in Project 2025. Edwards, and they give a little bit of his history down here. So where's the part where it does it here? While individual parts of they already are calling this a conspiracy theory. They're calling it a conspiracy theory. While individual parts of the conspiracy theory are somewhat true, and then they say Edwards was and has in the past been publicly labeled, all this indirect language, publicly labeled as a founding trustee of the think tank. Is he or is he not, HuffPost? That's a fact you can report on. You don't have to do this, has been publicly labeled. All right. Yes, he was. Yes, he was a founding trustee, one of the super rich people who gets to have a fun time up there. He was also a congressman, so it's, I don't know, is he the above ruler or in the fray political person? But anyway, so you can say that no, he did not write Project 2025 itself. But if you look at this thing called the Mandate for Leadership, a series of books published by the Heritage Foundation, an American blah, 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 we know all this already, offer specific conservative policy. Okay, history, and then we scroll down, Mandate for Leadership. Oh, Mandate 1, that was 1981. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Main article, Project 2025. So he didn't write Project 2025, he just wrote like the Silmarillion of the Lord of the Rings that is Project 2025. He wrote the source earlier material it was based on, and I'm sure they're completely different now, right? I'm sure version 9 of this text has nothing left over from version 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, where Edwards was working on it. So like, you see how it's like, yeah, he did not write, it is true that he did not write Project 2025, but it is true, but how they're trying to pretend that, oh, this is a conspiracy theory. He has nothing whatsoever to do with any of this. You're a crazy person if you're out there trying to conspiratorially link this innocent, brave man who has switched sides on the aisle for some reason, we have no idea why, trying to smear him for no reason when all he did was, help start the Heritage Foundation that wrote the Mandate for Leadership that eventually became Project 2025 on its 9th edition. Like, does the point I'm trying to make land? You hear what I'm trying to say here?
It does. It makes perfect sense because we have talked about this. It sometimes it feels like on our shows, like if you have watched every one of our shows and you're consistent, you're collecting them all, you notice that we cycle back on a lot of topics. We have talked about Project 2025, a lot in the past, and how it's a red herring and how it's essentially, a dog whistle to Democrats and liberals to say, oh, they're going to take away your rights. Well, okay, if you are a person of color, if you're a woman, if you are LGBTQ, I mean, there are all these, if you're poor, if you're disabled, there are all these people already. It's like, well, I have been a political target since before I was even born. So you're telling me they're going to take away what they've already taken away? Like what I already don't. Oh, no, don't take away the rights I already don't have and my equality that I already don't have. So when they're sitting here bandying about stupid shit like he was involved, he wasn't involved, it's a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy. They're taking your rights. It's all horse shit. It's political theater because we are out here like, yeah, okay, we wouldn't be here. There would be no left if there already weren't all these marginalized people who have experienced all this stuff already to begin with. And that's where, that's where we are. So we have always taken the position that, this is basically just horseshit that you hear in an election cycle. So whether or not they're like boogeymanning this guy or any of the people involved or the Heritage Foundation, where it falls on the political spectrum, blah, 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 blah. That's really all that it is. It's just sort of
It messes with the ability to use it as the ultimate Hitler document if the people that helped initiate it are also on the same team, which That's the point. It's the
Right.
same team. They just need to like like shake you up enough to freak out enough that you vote for one over the other.
And they're trying also. This is another. There's sort of a covert story in here as well, because somewhere the wave of austerity that used to mostly surround Republicans and Republican supporters, conservatives, has really enveloped liberals and Democrats in this election cycle. Like it is crazy how quickly and how easily manipulated the public can be at the threat of something like Trump. And last week I talked about you cannot make fear-based decisions rationally. That's just something in all of life. Like here's your life lesson. Like if you are doing something out of fear and you make a choice out of fear, you are not capable of rational decision. So if you are thinking I have to vote Harris to stop Trump, then that is not a rationale. That is not a rational decision. So when they sit there and say, "Oh, all of these former Bush people and Reagan people and Dick Cheney are supporting Harris," you know, how is that remotely a good thing? But yet the liberal crowd has jumped all over this as if that is somehow a qualifier that she's going to do good for you. Like she's a cop. She is the America's top cop. She, made money off incarcerating people of color when she herself is a person of color. She, didn't made sure that trans people had to stay in within in jail systems in dangerous situations that where they didn't necessarily identify with the same gender, which puts them in she's got this laundry list of horrible things that she's done in her history, and she's going on about, oh, we're going to build a border wall that's rotting and unfinished on the border and blah blah blah, which Jared knows something about because it's but the fact of the matter is that when they're telling you in this article and in this statement saying this guy now he was involved, he might have been involved, he says he's not involved, but he's probably involved. In the beginning he was involved, they didn't have the name yet. Oh, but he supports Harris. Great news, everybody.
Awesome.
Whole win right there.
Hooray. Because that's what they're like running around to defend this guy who not even 4 years ago that would be treated like an ultra demon because he still is a like Republican dude, and aren't Republicans supposed to be the worst thing you can possibly be in the entire world as a Republican, right? Like if you hang out with certain circles of liberals, even a lot of people who are my friends, they just use Republican as like a catch-all for like bad, in the same way that conservatives will use like Christian as a catch-all for good. And it's just it's like you guys are just like, you really are just freaking Mets fans, Yankees fans, just going at it over nothing, and you'll switch sides at the drop of a hat if it helps your fandom.
Except that I think baseball people have more conviction. Like they seem to stay where they are and doggedly defend their home team. Yet that these people are just willing to be like anything, And that was again something we pointed out a bunch. The Harris campaign very deliberately ignored the left and ignored any outliers to court the never Trump Republicans. And that's why it's such big news everywhere. And the media who does the dirty work of the government is supporting this story everywhere you go about 200, former Republican cabinet members now support Harris. She's doing the wall. And if you read the comments of people that may or may not be bots, online, it's like, how do you even tell anymore? But, they just sound the same. And they're just like, oh yeah, she's gonna get it done. She's getting it done. She's so brat. She's so cool. It's
what is she gonna get done?
Yourself forever. Like, just shut up.
Like any issue you actually push someone, like I don't blame the actual voters. I don't blame like supporters of. I don't even know anybody who's like hardcore like pro Harris. It's just the same lesser of two evils thing. But if you ask what will she be better on, you just get more and more obscure, and anything you actually push on doesn't hold up. If they say they'll be, like you were just illustrating, if they say they'll be better for XY minority group, you just look at her record and go, well, what was this then? It's like people telling me that, well, if you don't vote for the Democrats, you as a gay, you will never be able to adopt a baby. And it's like, I can't adopt a baby because I can't afford it. It has nothing to do with like,
we have bigger structural problems here. There's a bigger system issue.
I don't get married because like the tax, I'm scared that the taxes, I'm scared that my student loans will then get like tacked onto my husband. So like, that's what keeps me from marriage, not like what is it, Oberfeld, that they're definitely, they would sacrifice that just like they did Roe v. Wade just so they can, see, now you have something to vote for. that we take no responsibility over, like didn't codify when we had our supermajority, on and on. All right, I wanted to show you about Germany before I run out of
Let me ask you one question really quick,
steam.
as your point of view, and feel free not to answer if you don't
Sure.
want to. Do you feel like, in that what you just brought up, do you feel like because it's sort of like some millennials just aren't interested in like the whole family marriage thing based on what they've seen and grown up with in their own situations where they did, their parents went into terrible marriage just because they wouldn't, or starting a family because some people can't afford to, some people don't want to. So do you feel like you fall into one of those categories more than the other, or are you like, no, I'm completely hindered by the government in the
The
running of the country?
the older I get, the more I can see a version of my life where I would have kids. I say have had. It's still not. I'm not that old, but like I think that if we were in an economic position where I could have a not a traditional family like in the way that that's usually thrown around, but a more traditional family. I start to get like resentful of the ability to raise kids and contribute to the next generation has basically been taken from me for economic reasons.
Okay.
When you talk about pro-family policies, it ends up being things like paying for childcare, like better education services,
Right.
making a world where parents can actually stay home and raise their kids or do some kind of work parent balance that makes that possible. And everybody agrees on that. Like, I don't know anybody who seriously is like, we should stop having families.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, weirdo Marxists will run around because Marx talks about depending on how it's translated, destruction or sublation of the traditional family, where he's talking about how, yeah, some of the oldest forms of oppression in humanity are basically the wife in the
Right.
traditional husband wife child thing where she's got to stay home and in the kitchen and where all that comes from, because when we were freaking like caveman days, it was kind of a social not necessity, but division of labor happened. Guy went out, hunted, the lady stayed home, blah blah, on average. Obviously I'm sure there were exceptions, Jesus. But that's the kind of relation that we would like to change. They hear destroy and they're like, that means no one is husband, wife, kids. That in and of itself is just bad innately. And I'm like, well, I don't know, man. I think it's fine if everyone involved is there, like, basically consensually, that no one is pressured into it, that everyone gets to be living their own lives and having, that you're not forced to stay with a husband who sucks or a wife that sucks.
Right.
And
Because you're
that's what,
tied to their insurance, or you need the income to survive if you have a disability or
yeah,
something.
adding in all the modern stuff to it as well. Like, I think that is what should be, quote, destroyed or sublated. Sublated, meaning to destroy in a way that incorporates what it was and to rise above. I think that's what we're going for. Like,
Right.
I want people to be able to have, quote, traditional nuclear families. If that is what they want to do, I think you should be able to live your life kind of however you want.
Like
If
they
you want to
were.
be two ladies in a house with 5 cats, that's fine. Two guys in a house with 10 cats, I'll totally fine if that's what you want to do, if
The
that's what
cat
you find
wars.
fulfilling. Yeah, if you want to be like single man, 9 kids,
Yeah. No,
be a
I
crazy
agree with you.
situation to
I,
find
I was
yourself
I
in,
was
but
curious about your point of view on that because you happen to be part of a very marginalized group of people. So I didn't know if it was something that like it was a by choice or a by force, that you were.
the only parents I know that have problems that can't be boiled down almost entirely to economics are just very, very rich people, and they have nannies anyway.
Right. Yeah, so they don't give a shit. Let's hear
The
about Germany.
our struggles, the struggles are all aligned. Everybody,
Yeah.
all right. Yeah, I did a trip to Germany recently, and this is an excuse to show you some pictures. Also, I'm in my FC Köln or Cologne shirt, and I got a hat too. Where is it? Frickin' which way is forward? Doesn't matter because it's all black. You can't see the logo anyway. But here we'll be
Yeah,
kitted
you got
out
to
for a
get into
couple
the
of
spirit
seconds.
of it for sure. Get all the way in. I love it.
So what do we got here? Boom, my photos. So you get there, we ended up on a train. This is to show you, you can't see quite how big it is, but here's just like a bathroom this is the middle level train. There's like Subway, which has the fewest amenities and you aren't allowed to eat and drink on it. You have like these middle regional trains, the R and S Bahn trains, and then you have the bullet trains, which have the most amenities. This one, like, look at this full gigantic bathroom you can just use.
Wow.
There's Wi-Fi everywhere. was very nice. I have plenty of complaints about German rail while we were there, but in general, it was nice to not have to worry about, like, to not worry too much about, oh crap, how do we get where we're going? It was always this train station to this train station, and then a 15-minute walk at most. Like I said, our breakfast in Germany is like a bunch of cold cuts and sometimes fried eggs. So you got cheese and salami and a couple of
Well,
hams
you
and
up on
things.
meats first thing in the morning.
Yeah, it's. I kept describing it as like we're visiting the ancestors of our food, at least the food that I grew up with. Our family's not even German, but if if you grow up in the U.S. or anywhere near the Midwest, especially, it's just a ton of German influence, ton of German families. We could be, but I don't know. We our genealogy, we think we freaking showed up on the Mayflower. Like we're
No,
American families who've been here so long that's like we
right.
don't even really know. We have no connection to the old country.
Oh, absolutely. I'm the
Like
same way. I'm not. I didn't come from the Mayflower, but all my people on every single side, have been here for like 200 or 300 years. So there's nothing. There's
yeah,
no
like
connection.
as long as Europeans have been on the continent,
Yeah,
somebody in our family has.
yeah. Since before America existed.
More pretty breakfast. The pancakes, very different texture. It was like an actual cake. It was sweet-ish. And this is like not super fancy place we went. We're in the town of Hanau, which is near Frankfurt, and we found out it's where the Brothers Grimm were from. We walking around the town square because we had nothing to do, and saw a statue, and we go up. I was like, "Oh, the Brothers Grimm!" Like,
So
oh
is
my
it like kind of
goodness!
a fairy tale-ish place? Did you get that feeling, or like
All of Europe kind of seems like you're in a fairy tale. Well, I have a couple of pictures of the buildings coming up, but there's more just food we ate. Um,
what was the price of the food like compared to here? Were you able to eat for a good amount of money, or
it's a bit cheaper, and once you only tip if you're at a place with like a lot of table service, and it's funny. The fancier the restaurant, the greater the expectation to tip. Even though your tip is probably going to be less than the 20% expected here in America. If you do like here's €2, there's like hooray, awesome tip. I was tipping 20% whenever someone came up. You can tell just through like body language. They would come up, they'd hand you the pay thing, and then they would stand there smiling, and you're like, oh, this is one of the ones I tip at. Okay, and other times they just drop it off and leave, and you're like, all right, I don't tip at this one. I
right?
think this breakfast cost like $7 each, like $7 for that one, another like 2 or 3 for the coffee, and then $7 for this one. So like a slightly cheaper American breakfast, but then the quality is so much higher that it feels like you're getting a big deal. This is a you're gonna see doner kebab showing up here in a bit, but this is a doner what do they call it, doner box. There's a bunch of French fries under that doner. Take like Euro style where it's up on the vertical grill and they slice off pieces of it. This is essentially Euro meat with garlic sauce as the white stuff over fries. Oh look, the same thing but on a pizza. Hooray! Doner pizza.
Yes.
All the the places where instead of like where you would expect taco stands here in the US, you get kebab places or Turkish restaurants. Turkish people seem to be I guess the major immigrant group in the same way that like Hispanic people in the US. I it's very reductive to say this, but I have it's like every country kind of has a Mexico if you think of it in U.S. standards. Even though now the major immigrant groups, it's not even Mexicans, it's like Guadalajarans and El Salvadorians, Venezuelans, etc. Like you have the hegemony, like the major local group, and then you have the major immigrant group. In Singapore, it was Indian workers, like the people who were doing the day laborer jobs, the lower paying jobs, like just to be frank.
Now you
The
might not have been exposed to this, but did you get any sense of like, or being it is Germany with a pretty good history there, did you get a sense of them, like, was there like a racial divide type of a thing, like the way people, white people act towards Hispanic people here, or like, oh yeah, they're just the workers, they're just whatever, did you see that, or did people pretty much keep their mouths closed about that kind of thing?
I mean, the people we're around hanging out with who that we actually know there are all very kind people, so we were never going to get any of that from them.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like if I spoke more German, maybe I'd pick up on more subtleties. But it felt a lot like in the U.S. where no one's starting shit, no one's being weird for the most part. And if they were, that would be a big outlier. Germany
Right.
also receives a ton of a whole bunch of basically feel really bad about the holocaust, just like the U.S. and slavery. It's like feel really bad about this horrible thing in our past to the point where Germans are almost like a little bit ashamed of being German. It kind of it kind of
Well,
feels
right
like
now, our media is kind of giving us a message that there's a very strong, uh, resurgence of the, that kind of mentality in Germany. So you being there, was that what you would say that you experienced, that you saw all of those things, or maybe underlying, or was it very, like you say, apologetic, across the board?
we were in very cosmopolitan areas because we're tourists, so we're going through like the middles of cities. We didn't get out into the country, and we didn't see Bavaria at all. Bavaria, it's like it's funny. It's the south of Germany, and it's also in the southeast of Germany, just like the southeast United States. That's where I guess that's where like those electoral changes had been happening. We're in the city where everything is so effing expensive, and it'd be like if I went to New York City or San Francisco, and they're like, "Well, what do you think about the social issues?" Like, well, everyone who lives there is very right-minded,
Yeah.
to use a term where, like, on social issues, they pretty much everybody's saying the same thing as in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
For what the conversations I got into with people I didn't already know there were, it's relatively light. I don't know enough German to get into politics with anybody, so it's a lot more just like, oh yes, I can say two sentences in German. Is there any peanut in this food?
All
Oh,
right.
are you having fun here? Yes, it's very good. The beer.
Yeah, I'm
Woo.
enjoying myself. It's great.
This was on Oktoberfest. I got a quote pork knuckle. If you go to Hofbrau House, it is a chain in the U.S., but there's only like 7 of them or something in the country. So like some cities have them, some don't. Pittsburgh has one, and you get the pork knuckle there. It's similar to this, just this place was local, and I don't know if it's just my. It felt like it was better. I don't know if that's just me wanting it to be better or if it actually was. Giant chunk of meat that you gotta, as you can see, this like the thickness of this freaking crust. It's like a giant pork rind that you gotta saw your way through, and then inside is all this extremely tender pork meat.
Yeah. So you
Big
got to do
potato dump.
Oktoberfest for real. Like you went to the source.
And I'm in the wrong place for it. It's kind of like going to the rodeo in like Massachusetts because we were in Hamburg when Oktoberfest was happening, and that so we did get some Oktoberfest stuff, but it is not the area for it. There was one single tent set up by this train station, and we also
Okay.
went on Sunday at like noon. And on Sunday, man, Europeans don't do anything, which I kind of respect. All the shops are like they don't even open till like 2 p.m. on Sundays. It's like yes, you're supposed to be home sleeping in or hanging out with your family.
Yeah,
This is
hanging
our fanciest meal. I had this in Munster. Oh yeah, okay, buildings. Sorry, it was just all food in a row there. I'm like, I know I took pictures of buildings.
out.
Hanging out in Munster. All the architecture's kind of like this. You have like 4 to 5 story. They look like giant houses, but these are all apartment
Yeah.
buildings. Oh yeah, most intense thing we did. We went to FC Köln. We went to one of their matches. They lost.
So that's soccer, correct?
Yeah, we went to
Okay.
soccer. And the photos can't even convey it. We got standing room only tickets, so we weren't expecting seats. It did say standing room only, but I've done standing room only stuff in the U.S., and that usually means there's like a little railing that you kind of like stand against. Sometimes there's a little platform you put your drink on. No, this was there's like 5 sections or so, 5 or 7 sections that are the supporter sections, and it's like each one of those is a 100 by 100 square of people, and then there's 7 of those going across, like roughly, and you just cram in there. Like I don't know if these photos illustrate how tightly packed in we are, but it's not just shoulder to shoulder. It's you're turned sideways and someone is just pressed directly against you,
Wow.
the on all sides. And I feel bad because I'm very very tall, so I was trying to get farther to the back so I could just be like behind people who are shorter than me. The only way to get into the crowd is you just kind of start worming your way through it. it was not like a mosh pit, because usually mosh pits you have more space to move around, and like getting your hand in and out of your pocket is like you gotta start here to not elbow somebody in the face, get it, and then your hands are down, and then come back up. You gotta, oh yeah, sorry, get
So
my.
not for the claustrophobic, then I take it.
This will give people claustrophobia.
Wow.
In the front, you got the people. Oh yeah, the chanting and like singing does not stop for the entire match, which I expected, and it was extremely fun. If you find like high energy sports things fun, and you can deal with being so insanely packed in that I can't overstate it, you would love this. You would love these
It's like
games.
a fire hazard, but I guess they're not worried about that.
There was some kind of medical something where this dude on the front here, like, first of all, he was probably the coolest you probably ever feel has got to be in this stance on the gate, holding the megaphone, leading the giant cheer from around. And there was like 7 of him going across, like one for every section, because they weren't loud enough, even with the megaphones. Like you could barely hear what they were saying sometimes, and they had to like coordinate, like, okay, what song are we doing? Okay. They're all in German, of course. So we're just kind of like mumbling along. One of the chants was to the tune of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. So I'm just kind of like, so I'm literally just going ba 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 ba. Like, how did this end up?
Hey, it's about the enthusiasm. It's not about about getting every word right. So no, I'm sure that's. And that probably appeals to Westerners and stuff who would recognize something like that. Be like, oh, I know this.
The one chant I could do, because it was just their name, FC, Football Club Köln, SAFC Köln, SAFC Köln, SAFC Köln, FC Köln, FC Köln, Ale, 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 which is like everyone, all. So that was nice. It was the bit of self-consciousness of you're being screamed at in German, and you're doing a lot of like hit your chest, then put your hands out. So the whole time I'm like, all right, let's keep my fingers up. Let me not look like I'm Sieg Heiling as much as physically, because you're just putting your arms out and you're in such a crowd. Like there's no other angles you can take.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, keep the fingers together.
Oh man. What else we got in here? All right, this kind of illustrates, like, just trying to show how packed, because it looks like, oh, you guys are like leaving right now. Like, no, we're just standing there like that. Like, that's just the static crowd. Yeah, and you can see this is like the vein.
It's hard to get out, I imagine. So
this is the vein of people trying to go up. Oh yeah, there was some kind of medical, some kind of emergency of some sort, because the dude on the thing just goes ba 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 ba, and then he's pointing, and then people start looking around. Then people up farther in the section are pointing like down, like at someone, and then an aisle appeared somehow. This ocean of people, whoop, and then the medical dudes go up the stairs, because you're just standing on a big set of concrete stairs. And then some guy, like, he was walking. I don't know if he like passed out and then got up and was okay, but they walked him out. Like, everyone was on their feet, and then we do like the little like
happens all the time in that tight pack. You lose your breath and you get like overwhelmed. Panic attacks probably happen a lot.
So there is a procedure for if things go wrong, and the crowd was relatively responsive to it. It was. I do now understand the whole like, oh, the soccer stadium had like a collapse, and because there was a riot, or because when some of these are, you jump like jump, da, ba, ba, and you're yelling and jumping, and you can feel this heavy concrete structure. It feels like a freaking trampoline under you.
Wow.
It's a heavily built up stadium. It's like it's under good construction. It's not in disrepair. 50,000 people. I don't know if you can like kind of see. I didn't get a good like big wide shot. Oh yeah, more food.
Well, that's what people usually like when they go traveling, is to experience the local fare. So.
Oh, I didn't even freaking catch this dude. I can tell by his blue vest. So you might be wondering, like, oh, how do you, like, does the guy come around, like in America, with, like, I have beer, hey, and, like, to distribute? Yes, but he has a backpack that's a keg, and he just goes through the crowd. Like, people do move for that guy.
Well, yeah.
He just shoves his way through the crowd. I hold up my €5 bill, reach across, hand him my refillable plastic cup. That was a good idea. Nice. They don't serve containers of any kind there. You get the cup, and they refill the cup, because if you throw your cup, it's not going to do much damage.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Just places that have fought things out instead of just the free for all that any event in America always is. Like, hey, just don't get
we
murdered or whatever. In the end, bye.
we were shocked at how, like, because people were not like, it wasn't everyone perfect little, people were a bit aggressive, depending, like, these are the most like amped up, slightly drunk, like, hooligans that we're going to encounter in Cologne. Cologne is also considered a very metropolitan, it's like, oh yes, this everywhere is the San Francisco of Germany, except without everybody sleeping on the street. There were a few people sleeping on the street, but by like American standards, I'm like, this is gorgeous. I only saw 6 homeless people in Cologne.
Right. Yeah, I
It was
don't know.
actually weird.
I haven't really specifically heard what is Germany's. I don't want to say tolerance, but like their policies exactly, like how they support the homelessness in their situation. But
One of the guys coming around because they do can and bottle deposits, so everybody's there's a bunch of people out grabbing cans off the street. One of the guys who came up and was like, "Hey, are you done with your cans?" He just speaks fluent English, and it just makes me feel worse. 'Cause, like, man, you're like getting cans for money. You're an older guy. You're obviously educated. Like, you speak fluent English. Like, man, I feel bad. I hope Cologne takes care of you, does something for you.
yeah.
All right, before the game, we found we were looking for some kind of food, and of course, everything is slam packed anywhere near the stadium. But we got a little mom and pop looking place with it was a bit off the main road, so we could kind of breathe a little bit. We have currywurst. You cut up I think it's a bratwurst, and then put curry ketchup on it. You just take ketchup, curry powder, mix it up. I think there's like maybe one more ingredient, and then put it over that. It's like I'm like, oh, this is cut up hot dogs and ketchup, just done slightly fancier. Cologne, the Cologne Cathedral, the Kölner Dom. We climbed up the one tower of this that you can climb up, the one on the right, because we turned a corner and saw ticket prices like for €6 you can climb the tower, and we both are just impulsively like, let's do it.
Let's climb it.
500 and something stairs. Very much worth doing once you get to the top. It's extremely beautiful. You go up a literally medieval spiral staircase. They have evened out the stairs at least, so they're so they're regular, but it is up and down traffic in this enclosed spiral staircase. Again, claustrophobia is not your friend really anywhere in Europe, let alone if you're trying to do a couple of specific touristy things.
Well, things are so much more packed together and so much tighter. I can see how that could be.
This is the kebab, where you have your basically gyro meat. This orange sauce that I was like for a while, I'm like, oh, this orange sauce is so good, whatever that donor sauce is. And then the guy just said it to me in English this time when he asked like mayo ketchup, and I'm like, mayo
Oh,
ketchup. I'm like, no, I don't know. And I'm like, whatever it comes with, and he puts that on. Then I'm tasting it, I'm like, oh my god, this is just freaking ketchup mayonnaise mixture. Like, this is so good.
yeah. Now you can put it on everything.
It's you see the oh, Americans, they put ketchup on everything. Like, Germans put ketchup on everything and mayonnaise. And I kind of like it. Dang it, I like ketchup. Funniest ham sandwich ever. You see just two enormously thick. My hands are big, so it makes it look smaller. Just two enormously thick, like more than a half inch each, chunks of ham. And we saw that more than once. So apparently that's just a common thing. Bread,
This is
two
if you
hunks.
want to eat meat, go to Germany.
It is a lot.
Lots of meat.
A lot of meat.
Oh,
Berliner
great drink.
Weiss. Is you take beer and put sugar syrup in it, which will make people go like, "What? Germans putting syrup in their beer?" Yeah, they do. Another very fancy breakfast. This one was like America prices, but then when you see the like, I think this was about $30, but it's for two,
Well,
so it's
throw
supposed to
some
like
fruit
15
in
each.
there, at least to offset all the meat. So
Watermelon. I did not expect to see watermelon in Germany. It's kind of
true.
fun.
I wouldn't think of that, but yeah.
The orange juice was definitely freshly squeezed for us. It tasted just like a freaking orange.
Wow.
Oh, what is this? Oh yeah, this is in Munster. They have like a big lake. Everything's just very pretty. More of, I think is that also Munster? Yeah, that might be. No, this is Hamburg. But you see, it's just these like 5 to 6 story, gorgeous looking old buildings, and some of them aren't actually old, but they still just like that architectural style. I mean, a lot of it, because we were in the West, a lot of these cities were bombed to almost nothing in the 40s.
Right.
So that cathedral I showed you, the British and the whole Allied forces, they actually like told like, hey bombers, try your best not to hit the cathedral. Like, it's not the end of the world if you do, but try not to. And they didn't. And
Let's get around it. A little bit around it.
it's weird to think of where it's like you're fighting the Nazis, but it's like, hey, I also appreciate the mentality where it's like, hey, we're about to take this bitch over, so try to leave some of this nice stuff
Leave the nice stuff for us.
It's kind of what it is. I mean, that's like the reason for the whole like Napoleon like salt the earth tactic of like, when you retreat, leave nothing for the enemy.
Right.
But a lot of the architecture got to stay up, as opposed to Munster, which was just freaking leveled. Like some
Right.
cities were essentially put like, hey, get some of these heritage sites. Oh yeah, we saw this. This was.
Nice.
I was almost expecting in the kebab shops more like Palestine stuff. In general, people just weren't horribly political, and I don't know if that's because you're like bullied not to be, or if the laws are different. Like, I know they don't have a First Amendment, but like in general, this was probably the most political thing I saw was like some of the graffiti, and they painted this electric box like the Palestine
there,
flag.
and that's good. That's to get to see it anywhere, you at least know that it's on people's mind.
We know where the world's opinion is. Delicious pumpkin soup, and that's it. That's my German mostly food pictures. I have a bunch more, but I tried to keep it to things that are semi-interesting for randos to look at.
No, that's really neat because it's interesting to see and know what the climate of things are like in places that aren't here. And aren't completely, decimated and horrible right now. So that's essentially it's nice. It's a nice little reprieve to get to see, some other thing, or talk about some other thing, or experience some other thing that's not just the horrors of America.
The fear here, or my pessimism there, is that in general Europe is being kind of I want to say gutted. But like Germany, like we were talking about right before I left, Germany is closing down nuclear power plants to open up natural gas power plants. Yeah. We had the whole Nord Stream pipeline situation that has just drastically increased the cost of not only heating but kind of everything in Germany and Europe at large. Right. So everything they're experiencing the beginnings of what the U.S. has been going through, where we're like, man, eggs are suddenly $5 a dozen. And I don't envy them. I hope that Europe can also, just like the U.S., kind of stand up and take their own countries back.
Yeah, well, I think these smaller countries, have a much better chance of it than America, because I think we're seeing it. It's not like this is a novel idea, but America is almost so big it's ungovernable. I mean, that's really what we're running into at this point, because and then there is a good argument there for bigger government, just because the need is not being met. And I'm not really on either side of that debate, because I feel like if it's already not functioning and it's totally corrupt, how is adding more to it going to do anything? I got a YouGov the other day.
Structural change.
Yeah, I got a YouGov the other day that was like, well, people are proposing making Congress bigger. And I'm like, how the fuck is that going to help anything? More assholes get to it. They want to bring in their bros. Like, that's not going to help anything.
Yeah, Congress doesn't do anything.
It was sort of this argument about like, well, okay, would you support it if it meant that they would actually listen to you? And I'm like, yeah. Like, would you support it if it meant the corruption would go down? And I'm like, yeah. So, it's the idea is there. And I think with all of this here recently, nobody anticipated the widespread destruction in places that do not have the infrastructure to stand up to a hurricane, because they literally never have had to. So even here in Indianapolis, we had 60-mile-an-hour winds, and I had to put up tarps and stuff to try to stop flooding into my basement and that kind of thing. So, and in the middle of all of that, like right before it got serious, I don't live far from Camp Atterbury, and I was hearing very large, and I live near an airport, so I was hearing very large aircrafts sending people to the Middle East when they knew that they should be on standby. Especially like you were mentioning before the show, Tennessee sent their National Guard to the Middle East to participate in war rather than be helping anybody in Tennessee, which has been affected by all of this as well. And we are in a place now where that you are in a situation of catastrophic failure as a country when, this is not to say that altruism is bad or you shouldn't help your fellow man, but it should not be the responsibility of other citizens to help other citizens. This is a 100% government failure, that they are not, helping every single person with every single thing, and it's been the most apathetic response so far. And then Biden was on, asked about it, in an interview, that I just can't believe this was even said, because they just averted a government shutdown. There was no, back and forth, blah, 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 like they normally do, or, like this and the that's going on. It was just straight up give Israel money and we'll keep the government going. And everybody agreed on it. So it just happened really fast, because they're not even in session right now. They came in, they're like, yeah, okay, bye. And then went back to vacation. The hurricane hit. And then they're like, oh, actually, there's no money for FEMA. Sorry, we gave it all to Israel. Like, there would be money if you stopped giving it to fucking war. That's where we are right now. And this is what it takes to wake people up, unfortunately. But I think that I'm seeing now people have been pushed too far, and they realize that they should be being helped, and they're not being helped.
In the same way that the Bernie movement of the past kind of has birthed like us, people who have become entirely disillusioned with the process, who have gone, well, we've already given it our best chance, and that turned out to be not only nonsense, but the guy is now actively working in doing the opposite of what we all were kind of hoping he would do. I think that is happening, or has happened, is in the process, is about to happen with people on the quote right, that they are abandoning this direction brain nonsense, because more and more people are going, oh wow, look, what is Trump saying, the supposedly anti-war president? He's out there talking about how he's going to send even more money to Israel, and he's going to keep these wars going even more so than the Harris campaign.
Yeah,
so
both of them are out there. It's like, vote for me, because I'm going to Israel the other guy even harder.
They're both fighting over
we're
it.
both doing it, so.
I'm hoping that moment is, I say hoping because I think that would be good, is that same kind of thing is happening with the former, what would be called I hate these directions, the right, where just the general sentiment of these wars are an extreme waste of resources. Yeah. Look at all this stuff going back home. Like even the in-name America First movement has just like abandoned that, and they're like, Israel though. Like Trump at a rally literally said, "Make Israel great again," and we're like, that's a joke we've been saying about you because you keep funding Israel and not giving a shit about the U.S. And then you just made it real. And if people can get that thought and carry it over and connect it to all this other shit, like maybe we can start getting somewhere and actually working together. Because I mean, like,
if this is this is what it takes. I mean, if it has to be catastrophe to wake people up, because now, these people, I look at this and I think, okay, like these people they're specifically affected, your Florida, your North Carolina, your Georgia, Tennessee, so on. Like, okay, now you're going to go and vote for Harris or Trump, and like you have the audacity to do that after what you've been through. Is your life really like that untouched? Like you could put that aside. Like you've been through a horrible situation. Like I know people don't feel like they have like another option, and like they do, but they don't see it that way. Yes, of course, there's other lower down ballot candidates. There's Greens and there are Libertarians, but they don't see that as a major situation, because people really don't understand that you can change the system. But again, voting for Green is just another incremental change. It's really not going to move the change in any fundamental way. And of course, we know the Greens are not going to win, but they can, if you do vote Green, if you can and you do, that does qualify them, for funding, for federal funding, and it does make them a major player in things. But we're still talking about kicking the can down the road. We know it's going to be Harris or Trump. Right now in Michigan, they're saying that Harris is underwater. I feel like that's, the case in a lot of places right now.
I think it's a tactic to try and get people scared and go vote for it. They're just telling you how much she's losing.
I agree. I think that they are trying to do that, but people fall for that shit. People have fallen for all of this. And I think the only reason that people are motivated to vote for Harris is to stop Trump. And that's what they played into. That's what they're going for. And we have looked at both of them. We have seen the resume. They both have had a shot in the last 8 years.
She's in office right now.
Yes,
like
right now. Currently, through all of this, she was there. And when we're talking about the same person who would just say weird random shit and laugh weirdly, and suddenly she's just like coherent. Like, what kind of play was that? Like, you people, you guys, you're being manipulated. You're being manipulated to the highest order. And I know when we talk about this, we preach to the choir, but I think we always hope that like maybe one person will overhear like one coherent sentence we have about like, and then be like, hey, yeah, that makes sense. But what people don't feel like they have an option. They don't know that they can do anything else because they basically can't. We don't have ranked choice voting. We don't have these outside systems. But I'm telling you what, it's going to take unions. It's going to take unions that get together outside of labor. It's going to take mutual aid. Right now, we have a really big strike going on with the longshoremen, which is excellent. And they're like, we're going to fuck you guys, and they should. And they, you know, there's going to be another fight with this current government, who also shut down a major rail strike, you know, that resulted in natural disaster or a gigantic ecological disaster. I should say natural. And then what do we have again? A gigantic chlorine
fire.
yeah,
Like,
that's goddamn chemical warfare they used in World War One. Like they're like, shut your windows and turn your air off, I guess, or whatever. Like okay, people, you guys, you have to wake up to this. You have to realize. And I don't want to talk down to people who are at like the lowest point of their life and realizing no help is coming. But if you are in the throes of this and you're like, this is, you know, they said there's no FEMA money. The president literally said, no, we gave them all we have. No, you didn't. This country has slavery money out the ass. We've got so much money, and we gave it all to fucking Israel and Ukraine, and we still have more. And by the way, I just before logging on saw a story about how Zelensky sold off a bunch of land to DuPont and Monsanto, a bunch of farmland.
The point of the whole thing. Well, not the point.
Now it's all coming to fruition. Now it's all happening. We're getting there. We're seeing the end game. Things are winding down now because they were clearing the land. They kept, you know, they were, you know, making room for these companies. And that's what's going to happen in Israel. And we talk all the time about the Greater Israel Plan. And now it's in effect. You know, Lebanon's being bombed. And you're like, how am I jumping? You know, I sound, you know, schizophrenic here, jumping from topic to topic to topic. But they're all related. We're taking all of our American resources, and not even all of them. You know, this country is so wealthy you can't imagine. But you're taking these resources and putting them towards getting other places under our control. That does not materially benefit anybody in this country. There's a reason that schools are trashed and run like prisons, to get kids into the prison system. There is a reason that they figured out that they can use prisoners as free and slave labor. You know, this all benefits the capitalistic machine where this top echelon of people are benefiting from it, but everybody is slowly turned into, you can't own, you have to rent everything. Everything is garbage. All the services suck. All the food sucks. They're putting bugs in the food. I mean, that's happening now. That's a trend that started in Europe, but it's going to be starting to happen here in America because some of the largest companies like Tyson are investing in adding that to food. And the people who, you know, like chips and dry goods mostly, it's like it's kind of hard to add it to like meat, you know, but it's like either, you know, your dry goods. And then a lot of people who are forced to eat things like that are, you know, people in food deserts, the least, you know, the most disadvantaged people in the country. So yes, all of these things feed together into one big bad situation.
It's not that if we suddenly stopped doing the wars that this money would magically start going towards things that are important.
Yes.
But the fact that is true, like if you are part of the growing and rising group of Americans who believe that American treasure should be used to develop and redevelop and reindustrialize the United States, then you must continue to recognize that neither party is moving us towards that. Like it just doesn't seem to matter who within our current political system is in charge. The same stuff keeps happening. So we need to.
And they have no incentive to do it. It's,
we need
you know,
to abandon them.
It's gotten worse.
They need to be abandoned, and we have to move essentially beyond them. MAGA needs to move beyond Trump. He needs to essentially ditch him and people on the quote left who say that they want these things. You guys have got to abandon the Democrats. Oh my God. Like it sounds like the smallest ask ever. It's like, all right, you know, the bully who just keeps beating you up every day, you need to stop voting for him.
Right, right.
This should be very easy, but if I don't vote for this bully.
That yeah, it's the operation out of fear and feeling like you have no choice. But it's more the bigger picture is, and that's where I was like union, because that's the only way to move beyond the system. It's not about picking a new champion, a new blue or a new red, and being like they're gonna do it, because they're not. The next group of idiots, next cycle that comes in, are gonna be worse than these ones. And then it's going to keep getting worse. It's like the Wall-E future, where you see like how they just keep getting more and more inept until like finally the the last ship captain like can barely read.
Yeah, you
You know,
gotta
like
actually do stuff yourself, and
yeah, yeah. So I mean, if we're in a situation now, we're put in a situation now where people with their own aircrafts, like airplanes and helicopters, are taking donations, and literally like pack mules are taking people with these things, and horses and stuff are doing boats are doing it themselves to help other
yeah,
people at their own expense. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying like everybody's strapped, right? Like this is in no way our responsibility to do it. I'm not talking down altruism. What I'm saying is this is a government caused disaster, and they wash their hands of it. I mean, there are towns that are utterly devastated. Asheville, North Carolina is utterly devastated. There's like gone. It's basically scraped off the map. And then the president has the audacity to go on television and say, we've given them all they've got, all we've got. Are you out of your fucking mind?
we would
Like,
be factually better off with just no government at all as it
yeah,
currently exists, because we are already the ones helping ourselves. And
right.
if anything, the gov is like a freaking hindrance on this,
It is.
sometimes intentionally, sometimes just through happenstance. I mean, just like all the business interests are starting to move into Ukraine, which is, it's not, I don't even want to say that's the primary goal of the whole thing, but it's definitely a secondary and tertiary happy accident that always happens whenever we do these operations, like Syria, Afghanistan, the entirety of South America, and on and on. Guess who now gets to move into Appalachia and be like, oh, wow, what lovely cheap real estate now that this has been
Yes.
completely devastated.
Exactly like in Maui, exactly like in Puerto Rico, exactly like the southern coast. Now, if you go after Katrina, and probably even more so now, because I was down there right before and right after, and a few years after. And if you go down the southern coast, it's like all the beach is completely deserted, and it's all now owned. There's just casinos and giant hotels across the whole thing. Like, yeah, there's luxury living as well, but like all the people who had always lived there are way gone, like all the way
Yeah.
gone at this point. And that, this is when the reason they're not coming to help you is because this benefits the government,
Yeah.
these people materially, because their donors, their real estate donors, now can come in, buy up all that land cheap, and everybody at the top wins again. And they solve the problem of getting rid of the poors.
And these people have the same, they also have investments in the military industrial complex.
Yeah,
Like it's the same, the
it all
actual
goes
uppermost
together.
echelon of
Yes,
America, which is a layer that exists above our government. If you
yes,
think the president is the most powerful person in the world, you're really fooling yourself. It's
right,
the president auditions for these people. Kamala was the best audition candidate to
right.
serve the interest of the actual owners and rulers. And if
Yes.
you think I'm talking about, quote, the Jews, shut the fuck up.
Oh God,
Most bank
that is
owners
like
are
some old
Irish.
tired bullshit. Like
It's
no. That doesn't have anything to do. If it ever did, if I'm like, oh well, they're more wealthy than other groups. Okay, well that's not the case anymore. That has no bearing on modern society or modern ways of living
the
anymore at
average
this point.
Hebrew is working class, just like us.
Yes. And
Just
if you
like,
look
yes,
at
there
the
might be
history of
some.
this country, that's always been the case. They were always at the bottom level of society doing some of, the worst work that the cities had to offer. So we don't need
If
to
you
get into
talk
the history
about,
lesson now at this time in the hour. We should be
it's this.
wrapping things up.
When
But
I talk about the government not being the top layer, if you go back into antiquity and people want to actually make these JQ arguments, it's like, yeah, being a banker in antiquity like wasn't the top layer. You got to be basically the fall guy, evil billionaire looking person, so the
right,
king above you could get away with whatever thing the king actually wants. Like it all just to force an agenda. Most
right.
banks are owned by Irish people, so people have been jokingly talking about the IQ, the Irish question. Like, what do we do with all these evil Irish bankers?
So
Because
yeah,
it's
no, it's
ridiculous.
yeah. So the reason that we're sitting here almost talking like a hurricane of shit is because all of this. It's like how does the war impact what's going on here? There should be enough money for both. Well, let me tell you that there is. And but also of all of our interests are in the conquest, just like the Roman Empire trying to extend beyond its borders. That's where we are now. And we all know how that story goes. This is how every empire dies is getting too big for their britches. That's sometimes these adages work, but that's where we are now, trying to make messes and start shit and take shit that doesn't materially value the people. And we're talking about the French Revolution, we're talking about the Bolshevik Revolution. Look at how all these stories end. They only end one way. So we're headed in that direction. And all I can hopefully say at this point is that, we're stuck in this cycle right now. One of these two idiots is going to be president, but we need people not. The complacency time is over, okay? And I don't want to talk down to people who know this, and I don't want to talk down to anybody because that doesn't work, and especially people who are experiencing some of the worst times in their life. But I will say this. There are, don't give to the big charities, Red Cross and things like this. Just ignore the big ones. And what is it? What's that one that everybody gives to? Not Red Cross, but the Salvation Army. Don't give them anything. Stay away from all these big charities. Look for mutual aid groups, people that are doing these things. If you want to give to animals, people out there fishing animals out of the water, those groups exist. Get into mutual aid. You can
find a freaking GoFundMe that's relatively well researched.
Yes,
be better off.
If you have resources or time, or you can get there or do something or join up with somebody, look for the mutual aid group. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us this week. We'll be back next week with whatever fresh hell is going on then. And until then, Jared is going to treat us to a performance. And take care of yourselves and try to stay safe. And we're thinking about you, everybody. So thank you for joining us. And take care.
I don't remember if I did this one 3 weeks ago or not, but if so, it's been a few weeks. So whatever, I'll do it again. This is called Big Rock Candy Mountain, and I like it a lot because it's goofy and its cheerfulness in a way that I like, that resonates with me. One evening as the sun went down and the jungle fire was burning, down the track came a hobo hiking, and he said, "Boys, I'm not turning. I'm headed for a land that's far away, besides the crystal fountain. So come with me, let's go and see the Big Rock Candy Mountains. In the Big Rock Candy Mountains, there's a land that's fair and bright, where the handouts grow on bushes, and you sleep out every night, where the boxcars all are empty, and the sun shines every day, and the birds and the bees and the cigarette trees, the lemonade springs where the bluebird sings, in the Big Rock Candy Mountains. In the Big Rock Candy Mountains, all the cops have wooden legs, and the bulldogs all have rubber teeth, and the hens lay soft-boiled eggs. The farmers' trees are full of fruit, and the barns are full of hay. Oh, I'm bound to go where there ain't no snow, where the rain don't fall, the wind don't blow, in the Big Rock Candy Mountains. In the Big Rock Candy Mountains, you never change your socks, and the little streams of alcohol come a-trickling down the rocks. The brakemen have to tip their hats, and the railroad bulls are blind. There's a lake of stew and whiskey too, you can paddle all around them in a big canoe, in the Big Rock Candy Mountains. In the Big Rock Candy Mountains, the jails are made of tin, and you can walk right out again just as soon as you are in. There ain't no short-handled shovels, no axes, saws, or picks. I'm gonna stay where you sleep all day, where they hung the jerk that invented work, in the Big Rock Candy Mountains. I'll see you all this coming fall in the Big Rock Candy Mountains.